Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan and it's time for our Game Week 36 tier list video. Oh my word, guys. 3 game weeks left. Let's get started with this tier list, guys. Make sure you drop a like. Do subscribe if you're new around here. Let's get started. Yeah, honestly, guys, it's crazy that there's only 3 game weeks left this season, but the content has got to keep going all the way through to the very end. We're starting off with a tier list for this game week, and we're going to be categorizing the 30 most popular transfers at time of recording into some categories today. And we're going to start off with a young Dominic Solanke, who I'm going to put straight in the avoid category. A fixture against Arsenal away from home this game week. I am backing Arsenal to keep a clean sheet against Bournemouth this week, and I don't think Dominic Solanke is going to be able to find himself on the score sheet. So straight up an avoid, nice and easy. And we're going to follow him up with another avoid, guys. There's going to be a few avoids at the start of this video, I have to tell you. It's going to be Dubravka. I am a bit worried about Nick Pope being back in training, and I know a lot of people targeting Newcastle players for double game week 37. Could Pope be back for one of those fixtures in game week 37? If not, maybe he's back for game week 38. I'm just not sure if I'm trying to go for the perfect Newcastle triple up for the good fixture this game week against Burnley, and then the double game week the following week. I'm not sure if I'd want to be going in the direction of Dubravka. Højlund up next. I know a few Manchester United fans will be upset with me saying that I'm putting him in the avoid category. I have to be honest, guys, Højlund is just not looking it at the moment. Like, he is just not getting opportunities to score goals at all. He's barely generating more than 0.05 XG per game. And many games he goes in and he doesn't even take a single shot. I just don't know what's going on at the moment. The way Manchester United seem to be setting up at the moment is just not lending itself to Højlund getting attacking returns. And when we look through the fixtures for Manchester United as well, I don't think they're particularly easy. Crystal Palace away this game week, and then the double game week, I think is, it's not that good for Manchester United, really. So I don't think I really would back Højlund for this period of games. I know there's not too many options with double game weeks forwards for game week 37. I just don't think Højlund is going to be one of the better ones, if I'm totally honest. Edison up next, another avoid. He's picked up an injury. We're not sure exactly what it is. Could be a collarbone injury potentially there, because he did leave the game the weekend with his arm in a sling. So that's never a good sign. I think he's going to be out for at least this game week. I don't know if it might be a season ender for him though, potentially. I guess that remains to be seen. Tarkowski, I'm actually going to put probably in at least optional. Really like the look of the Everton defence at the moment. And we know Tarkowski is the kind of player who can get the odd headed goal. And that's particularly useful since in game week 38, I know we're targeting a lot of double game week players. There's not too many great double game week defenders in game week 37. And, well, Everton play against Sheffield United at that junction at home. So opportunities for defenders, centre-backs to maybe have some aerial threat against a Sheffield United team that do concede chances from those set pieces. So I do wonder if Tarkowski could be low-key a pretty nice pick. So we're going to put him in optional for sure. Next up, Trent Alexander-Arnold probably goes in the avoid category. I'm not expecting him to keep clean sheets over the next couple of game weeks. Spurs is the game week 36 fixture. I think they will score against Liverpool, particularly with Liverpool not been in the greatest of form recently. So you would be depending on attacking returns, which although could happen, I think you also want the added appeal of clean sheets if you're going to spend this much money on a defender. Which brings us to Julian Alvarez. I think he's going to be straight back on the bench now that Erling Haaland is back, so would dump him also in the avoid category. Yeah, loads of avoids this game week. Let's move on to Ødegaard. Optional, maybe. Yeah, he's okay. Like, Arsenal are in good form at the moment. There's no double game week, but you can still imagine Arsenal players getting points even in the single game weeks. And we kind of already seen that this game week against Spurs. We saw a lot of Arsenal players do quite well there. So definitely going to be some opportunity to go a bit differential by going for non-double game week players. And I think if you're going to do that, Arsenal, not a bad shout. Bournemouth at home is the fixture this game week. It's an okay fixture. Definitely going to be some opportunities for a team as good as Arsenal. Now, Nicholas Jackson, I think, is probably high-tier optional. He's a double game week forward, of course. I think he's a better option for that kind of category than someone like Højlund. However, we do have to accept that Jackson, when we're looking at one double game week remaining, I don't think is as good as last game week where we had 2 double game weeks remaining. Now, it has to be said, Jackson in game week 35 actually so far has looked pretty good. He had a goal disallowed for a marginal offside and he hit the post and it was so close, super super unfortunate to not have 2 goals in that game against Aston Villa. So although people do like to knock Jackson, I think he was very unfortunate. I thought he had a very good game against Aston Villa, and I think attacking returns are coming. However, are you going to invest there now that there's only 1 double game week left for him? I'd be less convinced by that one. But I still think he's at least optional. You could maybe even move him potentially to good transfer. He'll be a low tier good transfer though, and I think there are better options to go for. Jarrod Bowen, I think we shove him in optional. Another potential opportunity. Now he's back and fully fit and ready to go. You know, the heart of the West Ham attack. We've got Chelsea this game week, which is obviously a game where, you know, they do like to concede goals, Chelsea, let's be honest. And Bowen could be part of that. Fabian Schär, probably optional for now. It depends on his injury situation. Apparently, there's no significant injury. He felt a little bit of muscle tightness in game week 35. So I wonder if he could still be back. I would keep an eye on that one, though. Be aware he could get rotated, rested in game week 36 if he's not feeling too much better. But actually, I don't think the situation is too bad with him. Mateta, would I really be going for Mateta at this junction? Game against Manchester United, maybe he could do okay, but not super convinced by that one. Pedro Porro, not the game week for him with this fixture against Liverpool. I imagine a lot of people who are going for Pedro Porro would be looking to bench him this week anyway. So I'm going to dump him in the avoid category, unlike Dan Burn, who I think has got to be maybe our first great transfer of the game week. I think if you're going to go for a new defender this week, Dan Burn is going to be pretty high on that list. Nice fixture against Burnley this week, who are definitely a team you can keep clean sheets against. And after that, the double game week for Newcastle, I think, is pretty decent in general, particularly for a defender. I think actually Newcastle have one of the stronger double game weeks for defenders anyway. So, yes, going to put Burn straight in the great transfer category, and I think he could do pretty well for his value for money. Cole Palmer next. Most people own him anyway, but must buy. You know, you've got to have him. I know all of you are going to have him already, but like, come on, he's a must buy. We don't need to talk about him too much. Saka, good transfer. I think good transfer. Yeah, definitely another one of those non-double game week players who can definitely get something. I mean, we saw him in game week 35 blowing away a lot of the double game week players so far. Of course, there's still time for the likes of Palmer and Son to overtake him for score in game week 35. But yeah, Saka definitely a very decent player to go for at this moment if you are not overly focused on the double game week players such as Son, who again, is going to be a great transfer. Yeah, I think he's probably one of the top players, top transfer targets to own. Now, of course, against Liverpool, it is a fixture that suits him, but I don't think it's a fixture you absolutely must own Son for. It would be nice to have him, but with Richarlison back in the team, we could see Son back on the wing, which I think lessens his appeal ever so slightly. I guess we'll see. But what I will say is that Son for the double game week, I think it's low-key a captain shout against Burnley and Man City in game week 37. That is actually, if you don't fancy Erling Haaland, you want to go for something a bit differential, I think Son is actually a really good captain opportunity if he can start to regain a little bit of form, because obviously in game week 35 it was only the penalty that allowed him into the points. Now, Ollie Watkins is always going to be an option, but you have to admit the fixtures aren't great. There's no double game weeks, and there might be some slightly better opportunities for cheaper prices, because 9 million is quite expensive, but I think he's definitely going to be an optional player at least, as is a player like Ben White, maybe optional to good transfer. Again, Arsenal defence, just a defence you will trust in general. Bournemouth, you would back Arsenal to keep a clean sheet there. Everton is the final game of the season as well for Arsenal, and yeah, I think there's there's some opportunities here. Manchester United in 37. I wonder if a clean sheet will be there or not, but it's going to be really important for Arsenal to pick up some clean sheets as they often do. But yeah, White, definitely a good transfer, definitely a solid player to own indeed. Kai Havertz would probably be my pick of the bunch of the Arsenal players. When you take into price into consideration as well, 7.4 million for one of the most informed players in the Premier League, playing for one of the most informed teams in the Premier League as well. I think this is a really, really nice pick going into these final game weeks of the season. It's going to be difficult to fit him in, though, when there's all of these other double game week midfielders to contend with. So Havertz definitely would be on the menu for me, particularly this game week, when we're going into a non-double game week, and maybe we can focus on non-double game week players a little bit more this game week than we will be able to in game week 37. I think Havertz, definitely a decent pick to go for. Pickford, yeah, very decent goalkeeper, backup goalkeeper. You know, if you're looking for that goalkeeper for game week 37, maybe the bench boost, Pickford against Sheffield United looks pretty sweet to me. Kyle Walker, a little bit worried about rotation, so we're going to put him in the optional category. But in general, you would hope that you get maybe 3 out of 4 of the remaining fixtures for Manchester City that Walker plays in. I don't think it's guaranteed though, and I think that's the one warning there. Bruno Fernandes, I would back him probably around the same as some of these Arsenal attackers. Of course, Fernandes has the additional fixture, and Fernandes is probably a player who will have more opportunities. You know, most creative player in that Manchester United team by a mile, on penalties as well. I think you're just going to get slightly, maybe slightly more from a Fernandes than you would the Arsenal midfielders, given the fact that there's that additional fixture. So that is maybe a concern that the Arsenal players could outscore a player like Fernandes. In general, I'd put them in a similar kind of area. Next up, Branthwaite. Yeah, like him a lot. Similar to Pickford, Tarkowski. If you want to go for an Everton defender, I'd probably back Branthwaite above Tarkowski because of the cheaper price tag. And I think Branthwaite actually, pretty unfortunate not to get given an assist in game week 35 as well. So a little bit of aerial threat there as well, which is going to be useful against Sheffield United in the big double game week, where I think actually Everton defenders could do quite well. Honestly, guys, there's not too much going on for game week 37 for defenders. So we are kind of looking towards Everton now, I think, genuinely. Erling Haaland, is he a must-buy? I think he possibly is, yeah. He's going to be the big captain shout, not just for this game week, but also for the final 2 game weeks of the season. I can imagine a lot of people will be just looking to captain Haaland for the rest of the season now. So a real damaging player if you don't have him, and not a player I'd like to miss out on, particularly now we know he's fully fit and ready to go for these final games of the season. Obviously, he'll be looking to secure that golden boot as well in these game weeks, with his partner in the must-buy category, Cole Palmer, also kind of looking for that golden boot. So yeah, going to be a hot race, and it's going to be between probably these 2 players. I wonder if anyone else can get involved. Maybe an Isak, maybe Son still probably about there as well. Let's see what happens in these final games. Watkins, of course, got to be a shout in for the golden boot. Guardiola, I think I prefer him. He's probably my favourite of the Man City defenders to go for right now, particularly with the Ederson situation. Maybe Guardiola is the place to go instead. So let's put him kind of around here somewhere. Yeah, pretty much a decent bargain at 5 million. He has been outperforming his stats a lot, and I don't expect him to carry on scoring and assisting the way he has been doing recently, but still, you know, you're gonna have opportunities if he keeps playing in that kind of left wing back position, which essentially he has been playing recently. So yeah, decent opportunity. Probably would prefer to go for him than Walker. Slightly better chance of playing the remaining games, but beware of Ake potentially taking some left back minutes from Guardiola. That is definitely a possibility. Yeah, in general, Man City defense, there's nowhere that you're guaranteed to get starts from, unless Ederson is confirmed out for the rest of the season, in which case Ortega maybe becomes an option, one to keep an eye on. Gordon up next, definitely a great transfer. The one concern is that his away form is not great, and Newcastle play against Burnley away from home. Now, if you really truly believe in this home versus away form thing, then yeah, maybe that puts you off Gordon a little bit. But I mean, come on, Gordon is a fantastic football player. Surely he can start picking up some points in the away fixtures as well. I mean, it's Burnley. You know, this is a good opportunity for the Newcastle guys to get something out of this game. So we've got to put Gordon at least in great transfer. Maybe not in the same vein as like a Son, Haaland, Palmer, but he's got to be up there. Phil Foden is going to be slightly higher than Gordon for me. He missed out on game week 35 with illness, but illness never lasts very long, and when a player is recovered from their illness, they're usually straight back into their respective teams. And I think Foden is probably now going to be good to play every game remaining in the Premier League for Man City. I do see him as a fairly nailed on player, so I think he's a great transfer. You could argue that he goes ahead of Son as well. Not really sure what I would say there, but they're probably similar areas, Son and Foden. If you don't have either of them, then you probably want to get at least one of them. If you have one of Son and Foden, maybe the other one is your transfer target this week. De Bruyne. Now, I like him a lot. I picked him for my wildcard team in the end, which is pretty exciting. However, is he as essential as a player like Foden? For me, probably not. But we have to accept that a player like De Bruyne, at the end of the season, every year, he is just elite. You know, when it comes to clutch time, when Man City need to win every single game remaining in the season, they count on players like De Bruyne to produce that magic, and he's already started to prove that that's what he's going to do, and I think that is going to continue. He is a risk, he is a differential, and there's always a chance of rotation with him being a slightly older player who hasn't necessarily always played every single game, particularly with some injury issues this season. But if he does play, we know he is good for FPL points, particularly at these crucial times at the end of the season. And I do like the Man City attack for this final run of games. I think if you had to pick 3 Man City players for the final run-in, it would be Haaland, Foden, and De Bruyne. I prefer the attackers than the defenders. That's not to say the defenders are bad, and I would be, I'd rather have Guardiola than just 2 Man City players. But yeah, certainly De Bruyne right up there. Which brings us to our final player of the tier list today, guys, and that is going to be Alexander Isak. I'm going to put him, I think, in the great transfer category. I think the one thing that's putting me off putting him in the must-buy is Callum Wilson coming back and getting some minutes over the last couple of game weeks, and that does concern me a little bit, particularly in a double game week. You wonder, Isak is a player who hasn't always been able to play multiple games per week, and is Wilson going to sneak some minutes off Isak, maybe start one game and Isak get benched for one game over the final 4 fixtures? I hope not as an Isak owner, but ultimately when we look around the forwards that are, our options in FPL right now, Haaland is, pretty much a lock in your team, you would say. Isak is pretty close to being a lock as well. So I think because there isn't too many other forward options that, you must go for, Haaland and Isak certainly comfortably the top 2 forwards to have in your FPL team at the moment. Outside of that, I'm not fully sure who you go for. I mean, I have Nicholas Jackson personally. There's arguments to be had around the likes of Watkins, Mateta maybe, Højlund. I don't know if I'd go for Højlund personally, but still, some people are going to argue that maybe Højlund is an option as well. But I think I'm happy with the tier list as we have it right now. Many, many players in a void today. Didn't really want to sit on the fence. I wanted to, make sure we do put some players in a void. I think there are some very strong options. As long as you have Palmer and Haaland, I think that's a great start. If you don't have those players already. After that, look through the great transfers list, I suppose. If you've got any players missing from the great transfers, those would be the kind of players I'd go for. De Bruyne is probably going to be the hardest player to reach out of those players, particularly if you already have like a Havertz, Fernandes, Saka. I think if you already have Havertz, Fernandes, Saka, I think they're absolutely fine to own those players going forward rather than moving to a De Bruyne. That's probably pretty much a waste of a transfer, as there's not too much to split these players. And outside of that, there's a whole bunch of different options that I don't think are necessarily must-have players. So yeah, this game week, I'm not sure it's going to be huge for transfers. It might be more of one of those weeks where we kind of look at the injury issues we have at the moment. There's a lot of players who have been injured. Edison, for example, we've seen the likes of Van Hecker, Fabian Schär potentially with an injury there as well. Some of you guys may already have a doggy. We don't know the Gusto situation, although he is targeting this game week to be back in the team. Yeah, so maybe it's kind of the goalkeepers, defenders that you guys are mostly looking at this week in order to fix some injury problems. Outside of that, hopefully you guys are going to start picking up most of the players towards the top of this tier list, ready to go for Game Week 37, which is going to be a huge one that I'm very much looking forward to. But we've got to get through Game Week 36 first. And we're going to do that, hopefully, with the likes of Palmer, Haaland, Isak, Son, Foden, and all the gang scoring plenty of FPL points. Guys, if there's any players missing from this tier list that you guys would like to talk about, let me know in the comment section, and we will try and place them in one of these categories. Whatever player you are thinking of, just leave a comment, let me know, and we'll place them. And yeah, hopefully, most of this tier list is roughly right. Again, if you disagree with anything, again, let me know. Always good to hear your opinions. But for today, thank you so much for watching once again. If you enjoyed this one, do drop a like, do subscribe if you are new around here. We will be back with plenty of content for the rest of the week, so hopefully you guys will be able to join me for those. Buy, sell, keep, avoid tomorrow. But until then, thank you so much for watching once again, and I will see you later, mates. Bye-bye.